Number 9. Danielle Redlick. Before Danielle Redlick became the wife of UFC executive Michael Redlick, she was his stepdaughter. Michael was married to Danielle's mother, Kathleen, for just 3 months before Kathleen passed away from cancer. At the time, Kathleen's younger daughter, Danielle's sister, was still living in Michael's home in Winter Park, Florida. Michael asked Danielle to move in and help care for her sister. She agreed, and during that time, Michael and Danielle grew close. Their relationship eventually became romantic. Danielle was allegedly concerned about how the unlikely relationship would affect her family, but Michael brushed off the issue, according to her lawyer. The two eventually got married, which meant that Danielle became the stepmother to her biological sister, Michael's other stepdaughter. One day in 2019, nearly 2 decades into the marriage, the couple got into an argument that ended with Michael being stabbed to death. Prosecutors charged Danielle with murder and accused her of deliberately ending Michael's life. They pointed out that she tried to clean up the scene afterward and that she waited 11 hours before dialing 911, arguing that these are signs indicative of guilt. It certainly didn't help Danielle's case for innocence that she told the 911 dispatcher that she believed Michael had died from a heart attack. Danielle's lawyers, on the other hand, argued that she didn't mean to kill her husband, but that she did so in self-defense after he pinned her helplessly against a kitchen island and smothered her during the disagreement. In court, Redlick testified that she couldn't breathe and feared for her life when she stabbed Michael. She faced life in prison if convicted, but a jury believed Danielle's self-defense argument and acquitted her of the charge. When the not guilty verdict was announced, she burst into tears, but she wasn't completely off the hook for her role in the tragedy. In 2022, a judge sentenced her to time served plus a year of probation for tampering with physical evidence in connection with Michael's death. She was also ordered to undergo a mental health evaluation along with any required treatment pending the results. Number 8. Valeria Smith. 54-year-old Jacqueline Smith's life was abruptly cut short in December of 2018 when someone stabbed her repeatedly in her car on the streets of Baltimore. Her husband, Keith, and her stepdaughter, 28-year-old Valeria, told authorities that a young woman had approached the vehicle with a baby in her arms and asked for spare change. Just moments later, a man rushed up, grabbed Jacqueline's purse, and plunged a knife into her chest. The story sparked widespread fear and outrage among residents in Baltimore and elsewhere. Even Oprah Winfrey said that she would think twice from now on before giving money to the homeless, according to the Baltimore Sun. But homicide investigators weren't fully convinced that Valeria and Keith were telling them the truth about how Jacqueline was murdered. As they dug deeper into the case, they found more and more evidence to suggest that the story was an elaborate cover-up. Surveillance footage of the alleged crime scene turned up no evidence that the Smiths' car had been anywhere near the area at the time of the murder. The vehicle was seen at a local park for a 15-minute period, however, and detectives also learned that Keith Smith had allegedly asked a friend for help, murdering his wife. He had also conducted a search for foreign countries he could travel to without a passport. Several months after the murder, authorities arrested Keith and Valeria in southern Texas, just 20 miles, 32.2 kilometers from the Mexican border. Keith was charged with murder and received a life sentence. Valeria was charged with acting as an accessory after the fact. She pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Number 7. Christy Coslow. One day in 1992, 2 people stormed into the Fort Worth, Texas home of petroleum heiress Karen Coslow, beat her with a crowbar, and fatally slashed her throat. Her husband Jack sustained a serious head injury, but survived and was able to run for help. The attackers made off with a $1,600 wristwatch and $200 cash. Authorities initially suspected Jack of having something to do with the murder, but they eventually narrowed the blame to 2 men named Jeffrey Dillingham and Brian Dennis Salter, whom they accused of conspiring with Karen's stepdaughter, 17-year-old Christy. Salter was Christie's boyfriend. Shortly before carrying out the murder, Christie provided him and Dillingham with the security code to the home so they could sneak in. Investigators surmised that Christie wanted her stepmother dead because she mistakenly believed that she would receive a large inheritance. She had even promised her co-conspirators $1 million to go along with the plan to kill Karen. Much to Christie's disappointment, and to the disappointment of her accomplices, Karen left nothing behind for her stepdaughter. Her entire $500,000 estate was left to her husband Jack under terms that seemed to be designed specifically to keep Christie from getting any money. Christie, Dillingham, and Salter were all charged with murder. Salter and Christie were both sentenced to life in prison. Dillingham turned down a plea offer and received a death sentence. He was executed by lethal injection in 2000. Number 6. Samantha Bevins. While conducting a wellness check in Benton County, Iowa in 2022, sheriff's deputies found 58-year-old Jody Bevins dead in her home. An autopsy ruled her cause of death as undetermined, but authorities had reason to believe that she had been murdered. Detectives spent the next 2 months trying to track down a suspect. They found that the victim's stepdaughter, 34-year-old Samantha Bevins, had allegedly threatened to hurt Jody before her death. They also found a note the woman had written to herself, dated to the day of the murder, with a reminder stating, "Kill Jody." After being taken in for questioning, Bevins admitted to killing her stepmom with the help of an accomplice, according to an arrest report. She reportedly told investigators that she smothered Jody with a pillow while her alleged co-conspirator, 38-year-old Takoa Tali, choked the victim. A search warrant yielded a Snapchat video of Samantha confessing to the crime, and a witness also gave a corroborating statement regarding things they claim they heard her saying about Jody's death. Bevins and Tali pleaded not guilty to murder. Their fate is now in the hands of the justice system and remains to be seen. Number 5. Krista Mortensen. In late May of 2022, police in Springville, Utah were busier than usual. They dealt with 3 murders in the span of just 1 week. While that may not be a large number of homicides in a big city, it was highly unusual in Springville, a sleepy, moderately sized community of less than 34,000 residents. The most surprising call of that week came when authorities found 75-year-old Michael Huff dead in his home with a gunshot wound to the head. Huff's stepdaughter, 33-year-old Krista Mortensen, allegedly locked herself in a second-story bedroom and refused to come out. Officers eventually forced their way into the room and found the woman cowering in fetal position on the bed, with blood on her arms, hands, and clothes, according to an arrest report. She was uncooperative with police and asked for a lawyer. It wasn't Mortensen's first brush with the law. Prior to the shooting, she had 9 prior convictions, including 1 felony and 4 cases that were pending at the time of her arrest. She faces 3 more charges in connection with Huff's death, including murder, obstruction of justice, and possession of a weapon by a restricted person. In other words, for having a gun when she wasn't supposed to. Number 4. Alyssa McGuire. 67-year-old Mary Ann McGuire was found shot to death on the porch of her Columbiana County, Ohio home in early 2022. Shortly after the discovery, police took her stepdaughter's boyfriend, 27-year-old Justice M. Givens, into custody. Several months later, he was charged with aggravated murder, tampering with evidence, endangering children, drug possession, and several gun-related counts. Detectives also suspected the stepdaughter herself, 28-year-old Alyssa McGuire, of playing a role in Mary Ann's murder. She was charged with obstruction of justice for failing to provide investigators with accurate information about the crime. Alyssa is accused of telling conflicting stories about her and Givens' whereabouts immediately after Mary Ann was killed. She also allegedly lied about whether she saw a gun in her boyfriend's possession. It's unclear whether authorities believe Alyssa directly harmed her stepmother, but they believe that she knows more than she's letting on, mainly for the sake of helping to cover up the murder. Number 3. Hannah Price. Rock singer Chris Daughtry rose to fame in the early 2000s after starring in the 5th season of American Idol. In recent years, however, he's appeared in news stories more frequently for his intriguing personal life than his music. Daughtry's stepdaughter, Hannah Price, has been a particular focus of these headlines. In 2018, when she was in her early 20s, she survived being shot in the face during a gang-related hit-and-run that she got caught up in. Shortly after the incident, Hannah shared graphic photos of her injuries on social media, along with chilling details of the suffering she endured, which included losing one eye and requiring a prosthetic. She also wrote that she was completely blind for 2 weeks. Hannah didn't share many details about what led up to the shooting, but said that she was in a situation where she felt uncomfortable and that she took the bullet from a friend she barely knew. She claimed that she was trying to save a friend's life when it happened. A minor was charged with attempted murder in connection with the shooting. This seemed to mark the beginning of the young woman's troubled final years, which started after her biological father took his own life. In 2020, Hannah and her boyfriend Bobby Jolly were arrested in connection with an alleged hit-and-run. The pair were accused of shooting at another car during a road rage incident. Hannah's string of misfortune ended in 2021 when she was found dead in her home from what was initially suspected to be a homicide. She had recently failed to show up to her latest court hearing for the hit-and-run charge, and her social media posts became increasingly grim and dark in the days leading up to her death. It was later revealed that Hannah took her own life. A statement from her family revealed that during her battle against mental illness, she had turned to drugs and often wound up in abusive relationships. Her loved ones did everything they possibly could to support her and help her get through trying times, especially after she was shot in the face. Shortly before her death, Hannah had made plans to move closer to her family as she continued to seek treatment, but she found herself in fear for her life after a recent boyfriend allegedly hit her and stole her car. Her relatives had asked the police to do a welfare check. During the visit, officers determined that she was okay. Hannah's boyfriend found her body later that day and dialed 911. After an extensive investigation, it was concluded that she unfortunately saw no way out of her misery and sought a permanent end to her problems. In the wake of Hannah's passing, the Daughtry family pleaded with the public to seek help for their problems and to do anything possible to avoid resorting to self-harm. Number 2. Julie Banda. While most Americans were preoccupied with COVID-19 during the pandemic's beginning stages in 2020, the loved ones of 49-year-old Carlos Chavez had to come with grips with news that he had been fatally shot in San Antonio, Texas. And little did they know, their long road to closure was just beginning. Police found Chavez clinging to life on the sidewalk near the front gate of his home. Tragically, he died at the hospital. According to witnesses, a group of people had pulled up to the scene in a silver car. A passenger shot Chavez multiple times, and the car drove off. The investigation lasted nearly 2 years before authorities charged the victim's stepdaughter, 28-year-old Julianne Banda, with murder. Records allegedly show that Chavez and Banda were communicating via text shortly before the shooting. Chavez was waiting for Banda to arrive at his home. 3 minutes after Banda told her stepfather that she was outside, someone dialed 911 and reported the shooting. Detectives were also able to track down the vehicle's owner, who said that she had loaned her car to Banda hours before the crime occurred. The suspect's case is ongoing. Number 1. Lori Harvey. As the stepdaughter of Steve Harvey, Lori Harvey is no stranger to the spotlight, but she wasn't used to the type of media attention she received in 2020 when she was arrested in connection with a hit-and-run case from the year prior. The 22-year-old was charged with hit-and-run resulting in property damage and resisting, delaying, obstructing a peace officer. The incident happened in October of 2019 in Los Angeles, when Lori was involved in a car accident and allegedly attempted to flee the scene. Her Mercedes G-Wagon tipped over, and a parked car was also damaged. Luckily, nobody was hurt. Police apprehended Lori nearby, but no charges came until several months later, after she spent a leisurely weekend in Jamaica with her boyfriend, the rapper Future. She took a plea deal and was sentenced to 2 years of probation in exchange for pleading no contest to resisting arrest. And while the conviction doesn't sound too serious compared to some of the situations on today's list, the incident just goes to show that when you live in the public eye, even your smallest mistakes are big news. Thanks for watching. Would you rather have a stepdaughter who constantly steals from you, or realize that you had mistakenly accused your stepdaughter of something horrific that your own child was guilty of? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.